What's going on, you guys? I want to share with you a conversation that I had the other day with someone that owns multiple units of a franchise. And whenever it comes to getting a loan on that, whether you should get a loan, whether you should pay cash for it, if you have the cash available. And the reality is that a lot of times whenever I see people sort of like discuss this topic, there's a lot of poor or incomplete or just messy thinking overall. And I want to share with you the way I would approach it. And I think it's going to help you massively for you determining whether you should get a loan or not. Now, in this person's case, they said, hey, I had the cash for it. So I went ahead and bought it, paid cash. And so if I have the cash, I'm going to pay for it. I don't like debt. First off, there's a couple of different worlds that we can play in. We can play in the Dave Ramsey world and the corporate world where debt is bad. We could try to save up as much money as possible. And that's fine when you're in the corporate world. When you're in the business acquisition space and buying and selling these things, there's different rules that apply. So for example, the first thing is that he is thinking to himself, well, if an SBA loan payment is 11% and I pay this in cash, I'm making 11% essentially because I'm saving that 11%. And granted, if he was in the corporate world, I get it because you're not going to be able to make 11% without your risk being astronomically high. You're going to be looking at 3-4% CDs or whatever, right? In the business acquisition space, 11% is a joke. Like you should be making far more return on investment than 11%. There are far more better ways to be able to take that cash and make more than 11%. So I'll take 11% on one or pay 11% on one side and make 50% on the other side all day long, right? If that's a possibility, because I'm in the franchise space and I can use that cash to acquire an additional unit or buy out an existing franchisee or whatever, I'm absolutely going to do that. And those sorts of opportunities exist. Now, they don't exist in someone that is playing solely the corporate game. I get it. So that's one thing, is that there's this idea of what worked for me in the corporate world is going to work for me over here in the business acquisition space, because corporations are like businesses, and stop it. They're completely different. Secondly, and this is super important, when you get a loan or try to determine whether you should pay cash for it or not, there's all these people that debate, oh, you should get a loan or you shouldn't get a loan, or you need to use debt to your advantage and that's leverage and that's how you make a lot of money. This is incomplete. The way to look at this, the way I would look at it, is how much money do you have in the bank account after you get a loan or after you pay for a business? So for example, let's say this guy spent every single penny that he had to be able to pay cash for this business, thinking that his risk is decreased because his leverage is lower. Well, if he ends up in a situation where he has to spend $200,000 in working capital or CapEx or whatever for his business, and he has no money in the bank account, and he still has that SBA loan minimum payment to make, he goes bankrupt because he needed that $200,000. So he's done. His low risk idea that would have been true in the corporate world is completely false in the business acquisition space. In the business acquisition space, the most successful people that I've worked with tend to love debt. Now, when they're getting into debt, the biggest thing is they have a pile of cash in their bank account as well. They seem to forget to mention that part. That's a real important part. And a lot of times when people talk about, oh, you should be using debt, they're attracting a lot of like people that are broke to like buy their guru program or whatever. And it gets people into this debt and they don't realize, hey, there's a bunch of cash in this guru's bank account that he didn't tell me about that makes his risk lower. So for example, in the idea that this guy has gotten a loan, and he still has a few $100,000 in his bank account now because he got a loan, and he has that $200,000 expense that pops up. Well, he pays it, does whatever, and can continue to pay out that monthly payment for his loan until things are better, or he's used that $200,000 to expand so things are even better than what they would have been. So in that case, his risk is actually lowered because he has a loan, not the other way around, which is what they want you to think, and not incomplete like what these gurus want you to think, where they want you to bury yourself in debt and not have any cash in your bank account to alleviate the risks. So there's two really important parts. One is that if you're looking at these businesses, versus doing something in the corporate world. They are completely different rules. And this guy was very successful in his corporate world, so he thinks he knows everything there is to know in the business acquisition space. Not the case. Different rules, different games. It's not that he's stupid or smart or anything. It's that it's a different game. That's okay. We just need to realize we're playing a different game. Secondly, the idea of this 11%, saving 11%, if you're not making more than 11% with a business acquisition or expanding the business, you probably are maybe in the wrong game altogether. It's very easy to make more than 10%. Now, granted, it's going to take time, effort, energy, risk, and all that kind of stuff. Sure, it's a business, but 11% is like a joke in the business acquisition space. It's a home run if you're in the corporate space. So the other thing too is that whenever you are considering your leverage, your risk levels because of a loan and whatnot, you need to think to yourself, how much money do I have left over? If you were getting into a loan and you have no money left over, your risk is probably astronomical. Now, it might be considered that your risk is astronomical even if you pay cash for it, because if you have any sort of problem whatsoever, you're going to have other problems too. So the point is that your risk is really, really high if you don't have any cash left over after a loan. And your risk actually decreases with a loan with extra savings in that bank account to be able to handle those ebbs and flows, or even the ability to expand and grow your business, buy out additional locations, and so on and so forth. And so anyway, hopefully this helps you out with thinking about whether you should personally get a loan or not, and exposes a little bit of some of these gurus when they talk and brag about getting debt and using debt to their advantage. It's not quite accurate. And looking at Dave Ramsey versus someone else, they're playing different games in different worlds altogether. It's not one is right or wrong. It's that they're in different games and that their thinking is incomplete. So hopefully this helps you out a whole bunch. Take care. Talk soon. And bye-bye.